I used to think the sound of rain was comforting. Tonight it feels like a warning. Each drop hits the window with a rhythm too steady, too deliberate, like a clock counting down. Daniel should have been home hours ago. His phone goes straight to voicemail. His scent still lingers in the hallway. Cologne mixed with cedar and something sharp I can't name. I tell myself he's fine. I tell myself everything is fine. But my hands tremble as I pour the coffee, and I realize it isn't just the rain that's keeping me awake. It's the silence. They said Daniel and I were the couple everyone wanted to be. We met in a bookstore 3 summers ago. 2 strangers reaching for the same worn-out copy of The Great Gatsby. He laughed first. "Guess we've got the same taste in tragedy," he said. I should have known that line would follow us. Back then, he was warmth. A slow-talking Texas boy who could make anything sound certain. He fixed things, broken coffee machines, my car battery, my bad days. When he loved, he did it loudly. His texts came like morning prayers. "You okay? Eat something. Miss you already." We built our life in a small town outside Austin. Oak trees, church bells, the smell of barbecue on weekends. Everyone knew us by name. At least, they thought they did. It started with late nights. At first, it was work. Then, it was just a drink with the guys. Then, nothing at all. Just silence and that same cologne hanging in the doorway. I began to keep notes in my phone. Not evidence, just feelings. Tuesday, he forgot dinner again. Thursday, said I looked tired when I wore makeup. Saturday, smiled without his eyes. I told myself every relationship hits rough water. But when he touched me, it wasn't gentle anymore. It was checking, confirming, holding on a little too long, as if to make sure I was still his. One night I asked, "Do you still love me?" He stared at the wall and said, "Love's not something you question." That was the first time I felt cold around him. I used to teach biology at the local high school. Maybe that's why I try to explain emotions like chemical reactions. Adrenaline, dopamine, oxytocin. The trio of chaos that makes you fall, stay, and fight. When the balance shifts, your body panics. You mistake fear for passion, anxiety for devotion. That's what was happening to me. Every time Daniel's voice rose, my pulse quickened. When he apologized, the relief felt like love. I knew the science. But knowledge doesn't always save you. I told my sister, "He's just stressed." She looked at me the way people look at accident scenes, pity wrapped in helplessness. "Claire," she said softly, "stress doesn't rewrite who you are." But I already felt rewritten. The argument that changed everything wasn't loud. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that rearranges a house. He came home after midnight, eyes red, shirt wrinkled. I said, "You could have called." He said, "You could have trusted." It was the way he said trusted, as if it were proof of guilt. He poured whiskey, sat across from me, and smiled. "You've been talking to people," he said. My mouth went dry. "What people?" He leaned forward. "You know which." I didn't, but the way he watched me, like I was something he built and might have to dismantle, made me lie. "No one, Daniel." He laughed once, sharp. "Good, because people love stories. And stories get you in trouble." When he went to bed, I sat on the couch until morning, counting the seconds between each thunderclap outside. The rain came again. It hasn't stopped since. He started leaving notes on the fridge instead of talking. "Working late. Don't wait up." Sometimes just a single word. "Sorry." But sorry is a word that loses meaning when it replaces action. At school, I caught myself glancing at the parking lot, half expecting his truck to appear. My students noticed the shadows under my eyes. One of them, Sweet Lily, slipped a drawing onto my desk. A heart, cracked down the middle, bandaged with tape. "Everything can be fixed," she'd written underneath. I smiled, but it hurt, because Daniel wasn't trying to fix us anymore. He was trying to make sure no one else could. There's a term for it, traumatic bonding. When the same person becomes both your comfort and your threat, your brain loops confusion into attachment. You stay, Not because you're weak, but because leaving feels like tearing skin from bone. I remember sitting in the bathtub, water gone cold, staring at my reflection on the surface. My lips moved, but no sound came out. I realized I hadn't laughed in weeks. That night, he asked if I loved him. I said yes. He asked again, slower. I said yes again. He smiled, finally, and kissed my forehead. But when he left the room, I heard the deadbolt slide into place from his side. Sometimes I imagine a voiceover narrating my life, the way they do in those true crime shows I used to watch before sleep stopped visiting me. The narrator would say, Claire believed the worst was over, but it had only just begun. Then they'd cut to a grainy photo of our house, a time stamp in the corner, and the faint sound of rain. If someone ever makes a documentary about us, I hope they understand this part. Love didn't die in a single moment. It eroded, quietly, elegantly, completely. My best friend, Hannah, told me to call the police after the third time he disappeared for days. But what do you tell them? My husband looks at me too long? My husband's silence sounds like a threat? So I didn't call. Instead, I started recording voice memos on my phone. Little fragments. It's 2 a.m. I think I heard his truck. I don't know if I want it to be him. I never played them back, but knowing they existed felt like proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Yesterday, he brought me flowers. Lilies. My favorite. He said he missed me. Said we'd been drifting and he wanted to start over. For a second, I believed him. The way he touched my face, gentle again, like before, made me forget everything. We ate dinner, laughed a little. Then he asked if I'd ever thought about what life would be like without him. I said, "Don't joke like that." He said, "Who's joking?" That's when I realized he'd already imagined it. The next morning, Daniel made pancakes. The smell of butter and burnt edges filled the house, a domestic disguise. He hummed a song I didn't recognize, something low and offbeat, the way a predator might hum before it strikes. "You didn't sleep," he said without turning. I lied automatically. I did. He flipped a pancake, smiled faintly. "You dream when you lie." I froze. "What?" He looked up, eyes calm, almost amused. "You talk in your sleep, Claire. You said my name last night, like you were afraid of it." I didn't answer, because I didn't remember dreaming. And somehow, that felt worse. He began working from home for a while. At first, it sounded comforting. More time together, fewer lonely nights. But within days, I noticed the pattern. His sudden appearance behind me while I graded papers. The way he'd quietly move my phone farther away when I reached for it. Calls from Hannah went unanswered. My mother's messages grew shorter. "You okay? Haven't heard from you." Daniel said the signal here was bad. He even called a technician, a man who nodded at every word Daniel said and left without touching a single wire. The silence thickened. In documentaries, they always describe it the same way. Victims begin to disappear long before they're gone. I could feel myself fading, not from the world, but from my own story. One afternoon, I noticed a picture missing from our hallway. It was the one from our honeymoon. Me in a yellow dress, Daniel with his arm around me, grinning too wide. When I asked where it went, he said, "Glass cracked. I'll fix it." That night, I found the broken frame behind the shed, glass shattered, photo damp from the rain. Only his half of the picture was torn out. The next day, he kissed me like nothing happened. But I started hiding things, spare keys, my passport, a small envelope of cash under the floorboard in the closet. It made me feel guilty, and safe, and guilty again. He suggested we go to therapy. I almost cried from relief, until I realized he'd already chosen the therapist. Her office was small, the air smelling faintly of cinnamon and carpet cleaner. Daniel talked the entire first session. Calm, articulate, wounded. He spoke about my anxieties, my need to control. When it was my turn, I barely managed a sentence before she interrupted. "Claire, do you think you might project fear where it doesn't belong?" I looked at Daniel. He smiled. By the third session, I stopped talking altogether. Afterward, in the car, he said, "You see, even professionals agree. You overthink love." That was the moment I realized he wasn't saving us. He was documenting my collapse. There are nights when I wake up certain that someone else is in the room. The air feels occupied, heavy. Daniel sleeps beside me, breathing evenly, but the shadows move differently, slower, deliberate. Once, I heard footsteps downstairs at 3 a.m. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a lamp, and crept toward the sound. Nothing. Only the door to the basement, slightly ajar. Daniel appeared behind me suddenly, his voice calm. Looking for something. I jumped, heart pounding. I thought I heard. He touched my shoulder. "You should rest, Claire. Sleep makes everything seem worse than it is." But the door was open. I hadn't opened it. I started recording again, voice memos, this time in secret. Sometimes it was just the rain outside, or the sound of Daniel pacing the hallway when he thought I was asleep. In one of them, his voice came through clearly, close to the recorder. "Do you know what love means, Claire? It means no secrets." I don't remember him saying that, which means he found the phone once. When I played it back, I nearly dropped it, because right before the recording ended, there was a whisper, my name, drawn out softly, the way someone might test the sharpness of a blade. A detective came by the school last week. He said it was routine, asking about local break-ins, car thefts, that sort of thing. But when he asked if I felt safe at home, his eyes lingered too long. I said yes. I even smiled, because Daniel was waiting in the car outside. When I told Daniel about it later, his expression didn't change. He only said, "They're wasting their time. People always look in the wrong places." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the detective's voice in my head. "Do you feel safe at home?" The question felt heavier than the answer. The Johnsons next door stopped waving. I used to babysit their kids on weekends, but now the curtains close when I step outside. I overheard them once, voices low, urgent. "Something's off with him. She should get out." Then silence. When I told Daniel, he laughed. "People fear what they don't understand." Then he added, "Maybe you should stop giving them reasons to talk." The next day, the Johnsons' dog went missing. There's a moment in every documentary when the story shifts, when hindsight becomes horror. For me, it was the night I found the locked drawer. He was in the shower. I was looking for batteries when I noticed the drawer under his desk. Small, discreet, sealed with a tiny silver padlock. I don't know what made me pry it open. Maybe curiosity, maybe instinct. Inside were printed photos of me, sleeping, cooking, walking to the car. But there were others too. Close-up shots of my phone screen. My emails. A note I wrote and threw away. I heard the shower stop upstairs. I barely managed to lock it again before he came down, water still dripping from his hair. He smiled at me, towel around his waist. "What are you doing?" "Just cleaning," I stammered. He leaned closer. "Good. You know I like things tidy." That night, I didn't sleep at all. They say betrayal triggers the same part of the brain as physical pain. If that's true, I've been living in a state of constant injury. I still can't decide what hurts more, realizing he doesn't love me, or realizing he never did. Because if none of it was real, then neither am I. I started researching. Late into the night, scrolling through forums, case studies, profiles of men who kill out of love. The patterns are chillingly consistent. Charm, isolation, control, rewriting reality. Each detail felt like a mirror. But the final stage, the break, hasn't come yet. At least, I don't think it has. 2 nights ago, I woke up to find Daniel standing beside the bed, watching me. Just standing there. No expression. I whispered his name. He didn't answer. After a moment, he smiled faintly and said, "You talk in your sleep again." Then he walked out. I sat there for hours, trembling. I tried to convince myself it was a dream. But the next morning I found footprints on the carpet beside my bed, damp, like he'd come in from the rain. And the front door? It was unlocked. I keep telling myself I'll leave. Tomorrow, after school, after payday, after one more calm day. But every time I think of packing, I hear his voice in my head, "You won't make it far." He says it like a promise, not a threat. Today, I caught him watching one of my old recordings, the ones from before I knew he was listening. He didn't stop when I walked in, just pressed pause, smiled, and said, "I like hearing how you sound when you think I'm not here." I don't remember how I got to the bathroom, but I threw up until my throat burned. That was when I decided, tomorrow, I will leave. No note, no goodbye, but deep down, I know he already knows. It's almost midnight. The rain's back. Daniel's truck isn't in the driveway, but his phone is still on the counter. I keep hearing faint clicking sounds from downstairs, like the lock turning, then stopping. I've packed a bag. Just one. My phone's recording right now, tucked in my pocket. If something happens, someone will hear this. He said once that love means no secrets, but love shouldn't mean survival. If anyone ever finds this recording. The sky looked bruised when I woke up, the kind of gray that doesn't belong to any season. Daniel was gone. His side of the bed was cold, the sheets tucked too neatly for something spontaneous. For a second, I felt relief. Then fear, because Daniel never left without saying where he was going. I made coffee, but the smell turned my stomach. The cup sat untouched, steam curling upward like a question that would never be answered. There's something about silence after weeks of tension. It doesn't feel peaceful. It feels strategic. I noticed the small things first. My car keys were gone from the bowl by the door. The envelope of money I hid under the closet floorboard, gone too. At first, I thought maybe I'd misplaced them. But then I saw it. A folded piece of paper, neatly placed on the kitchen counter. Just 2 words in Daniel's handwriting. "Trust me." The pen had pressed too deep into the paper, carving the words like a bruise. I walked to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. Pale, eyes rimmed red, hair tangled like I'd been wrestling ghosts. I tried to remember the last time I'd laughed without checking if he was watching. Couldn't. Sometimes I wonder if love changes shape, if it starts warm and human, then becomes something that feeds on the very thing it created. That's what Daniel had become. A shadow feeding on affection. And I had help. Around noon, my phone lit up with his name. I froze. My thumb hovered over accept, but before I could press it, the call ended. Seconds later, a voicemail appeared. When I played it, I heard nothing, just a faint hum, like wind passing through a tunnel. Then, very softly, "Don't go." I deleted it, then regretted it instantly, as if erasing proof that the monster was real. At 2 p.m., someone knocked. For a moment, I thought it might be him. But it was Hannah, my colleague, her face pale under the porch light even though it was still day. "Claire, are you okay?" she asked, voice trembling. "You haven't been answering." I stepped aside, gesturing her in. The house suddenly felt smaller with her inside it, like Daniel's presence still occupied every inch. She looked around nervously. "I don't want to scare you, but someone's been parked near the school all week. Old blue truck, the same one Daniel drives." My throat went dry. "Maybe it's just someone else's." "No, Claire," she said gently. I checked the plate. For a second, my body forgot how to breathe. That night, I went to the public library. My hands shook so badly I could barely type, but I searched everything I could about him. Old records, property history, anything. And there it was. A name that wasn't his. 2 years before we met, he'd lived in another state, under a different last name. Same date of birth. Same face in a small-town news article. The story said he'd been questioned in a domestic incident. No charges filed. The woman's name was redacted. My vision blurred. The computer fan hummed loud enough to feel like screaming. When I looked up, I caught a glimpse of something through the window, a familiar truck idling across the street. I shut the laptop and ran. Back home, Everything looked untouched. Too untouched. I went straight to the locked drawer under his desk, the one I'd opened weeks ago. It was empty, but taped to the bottom was another note, smaller this time. You can't study love, Claire. You can only surrender to it. My heart slammed against my ribs. He knew about the library, about everything. That was when I realized he wasn't following me. He was guiding me. The air in the house changed after sunset. Heavy, charged, aware. Every creak in the floor sounded intentional. Every reflection seemed delayed, like the mirror was deciding whether to reveal me. I whispered into the darkness, half to myself, half to whatever was listening. I'm not afraid of you. And the silence answered back with a sound, soft, almost affectionate. The back door closing. I ran upstairs, locked myself in the bedroom, and called 911. My voice broke before I could finish the address. The operator asked, "Is someone in the house?" I looked at the doorknob. It was turning. The police arrived 20 minutes later. Daniel was gone. No footprints, no truck, nothing. They checked the doors, the windows, the yard. One officer gently asked if I'd been drinking, if I was sure I saw what I said I saw. I wanted to scream, but exhaustion won. They left a card and a promise to check in tomorrow. When they were gone, I sat in the dark living room and thought about something I'd read once. How betrayal and love activate the same chemical reactions. Maybe that's why I couldn't hate him, because my body didn't know the difference anymore. I don't remember falling asleep, but when I opened my eyes, it was morning. Sunlight cut across the room like a blade. And there, on the kitchen counter, was my phone. The one I'd hidden in the bedroom last night. A new recording was saved. Timestamp, 3:17 a.m. Hands shaking, I pressed play. For the first few seconds, just static. Then my own voice, whispering in my sleep. Then Daniel's voice, calm and close, "Don't worry. You won't have to run anymore." The recording ended with the faint sound of footsteps walking away. Now it's night again. I've packed what little I can carry. Clothes, ID, the last pieces of myself that still feel real. The detective called earlier, said they'd patrol near the house. I thanked him, but didn't tell him I was leaving tonight. I need to disappear before Daniel decides I can't. I'm writing this by the dim glow of the stove light. Every sound feels amplified, the fridge hum, the faint tap of rain on the window. I keep thinking about the first time he told me he loved me. How safe it felt. How final. It's strange. The same words that once saved me now feel like a countdown. I'm in the hallway now, shoes on, bag over my shoulder. Outside, the streetlights flicker. The air smells of rain and metal. I take one step toward the door, then another. My hand reaches for the knob, and stops. From behind me, somewhere deep in the house, a floorboard creaks. Soft, slow, familiar. I turn, whisper his name. No answer. Another step, closer this time. And then, a voice, low and calm, from the shadows. "Claire, you forgot to say goodbye." My breath catches. The house feels smaller, like it's folding in on itself. I can see his outline, faint, just beyond the doorway. The same man who once traced constellations on my back and called it love. The rain outside grows louder, or maybe it's my heartbeat. He takes a single step forward. I take one back. "Daniel," I whisper, my voice trembling. "Please." He tilts his head. "You said you'd trust me." Somewhere outside, a siren wails, distant, echoing, almost hopeful. I grip the doorknob, pulse shaking. For a moment, I think I can escape. Then the lights flicker out. Darkness. And in that silence, his whisper again, right beside my ear, "Love means no secrets."